Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the Gospel of John. We're in John chapter 21, today looking at verses 18 and 19. Now, our last few sessions, we've looked at this conversation between Jesus and the Apostle Peter. When Jesus asked him 3 times, "Do you love me?" And always said, "Feed my sheep, take care of my lambs." Now notice what happens after the conversation is over. This is very interesting. That's in verses 18 and 19. Jesus says, "Very truly I tell you, when you were younger, you dressed yourself. You went where you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands. Someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go." Now Jesus said this to indicate the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. And then Jesus said to Peter, "Follow me." Jesus speaks a prophetic word to the Apostle Peter, speaking of the day of his martyrdom, when Peter would make the ultimate witness to his faith, that is, he would give his life for Jesus. Now, this will not occur for many more years. The crucifixion and resurrection occurred around the year AD 30. The martyrdom of Peter occurred in the mid-60s in the city of Rome. So it's 3.5 decades later. Peter has a full lifetime of ministry ahead of him, but Jesus makes a prophetic word. The day will come, Peter, when someone will bind your hands and take you where you do not want to go. He is speaking prophetically about Peter's death. The Apostle John, who we all feel strongly wrote this letter, he was listening to all of this, and he makes a comment. Jesus was talking about the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. How Peter would crown his testimony by giving his life for Christ. Now that tells us that when John wrote the gospel, Peter had already died. That's indicated by the fact that everyone who reads this will already know that Peter has given his life in testimony to Jesus. They will know how he died. And so when John says, when Jesus spoke this word to Peter so many years ago, this was prophetic of how Peter died. So we know the Gospel of John was written after the mid-60s AD. It was written after Peter had died and after the news about his martyrdom had spread across the church. So anyone who reads the Gospel of John will know, yes, that's Jesus talked about that long ago, of how Peter would give his life for the Lord. Now we know that as the gospel spread, it eventually made its way to Rome, and a strong church was established there. We also know that under Nero, the first persecution broke out against the church in Rome. It was after the Great Fire, and people were blaming Nero for the fire, so he fixed the blame on the Christians. He said they did it. And so he began to persecute Christians in the city of Rome, having many of them executed. Peter was one of them. Sometime during that persecution under Nero, Peter was arrested, because he was the leader of the church, recognized so, and in Rome he was recognized as the leader of the Christians there. And we know that he was crucified in the city of Rome, thus fulfilling this prophetic word that Jesus had spoken about over 3.5 decades ago. When you're old, years from now, when you're old, the day will come when they will take you to the place of execution, when you'll give your life as testimony for me. So we know that the Apostle Peter died in testimony to the Lord. He gave his life as part of his testimony. He was crucified under Nero in the city of Rome. Tradition says he was crucified upside down. That's a tradition, but it has come down through the years of the church. But we know that so many years before, Jesus had said to Peter, "You love me, and you're going to feed my sheep all around the world, and one day you will give your life as testimony to your faith in me." Peter did all those things. And then notice Jesus ended the conversation by saying, "Follow me." We're always called to follow Jesus. Wherever he goes, wherever he leads us, we are to follow. And Peter did. He followed him, even to the cross. Now tomorrow we're going to look at the last paragraph, or begin to look at the last paragraph of the Gospel of John. He is beginning to completely wrap up this wonderful letter, this wonderful book he's written for us. So we'll start looking at the last paragraph of the Gospel of John in tomorrow's session. So join us for our next 5-minute Bible study in the Gospel of John.